My assigned topic this week is performance standards. I chose to be a little biased in which article I wanted to discuss, which is titled Chipotle Search for Excellence, written by John Reeves. Now I say I'm biased because I've worked there before, so I really know how high their performance standards are set. Before I get into the article, I'd like to first just give a refresher on performance standards and why they're so important. To put it simply, performance standards are guidelines for employees on what is expected of them, how they're expected to perform a given task, and how well they are expected to perform that task. It's extremely important for restaurants or any business for that matter to set specific standards for employees so that everyone is well aware of what is expected of them. In another article I found, the author gives a little scenario in which a new employee shows up and has no idea what is expected of him. Picture a scared young employee named Joe reporting to work in a big hotel kitchen on his first job. The day's work is in full swing. Nobody pays any attention to him, and he has trouble even finding Chef Paul to report for duty. When he finally finds him, Joe has to follow him around to tell him he is the new cook's helper. Paul tells him to go over and help Roger. Roger is making salads and tells Joe to go to the cooler and get another crate of romaine. Joe doesn't even know what a cooler is or where it is or what romaine is. He feels like heading for home. Joe doesn't know what his job is. Roger knows that Joe is supposed to be his helper, but it doesn't occur to Roger to tell Joe what that means. Even Chef Paul doesn't think to tell Joe what his duties are. He assumes that what Roger will tell him to do is all that is needed. Now, clearly in that example, there were no performance standards set. He came in, without even being told anything. No one even knew what to tell him. And it made for a bad situation, which happens so many times. You have people that go into jobs and don't know what they're supposed to be doing, and they end up either leaving or getting fired because people think that they're not fit, when really they had no idea. I think it's extremely important in the restaurant industry to be as prepared as you can possibly be, just to save some time and prepare employees for what is to come. Kitchens can be really crazy, and the last thing that you want is to have someone that doesn't know anything at all to be slowing things down with questions that could have been answered previously through a set of established performance standards. Now, onto my article. Reeve first talks about how extremely impressed he was after reading a conference call transcript from Chipotle's CEOs, CFLs, and Monty Moran. Most of the conversation was spent talking about their quality food and outstanding people, which is what sets them apart from all other fast food establishments. Reeve talks about the company's restaurateurs, who are the top performing managers throughout the company. Employees led by these managers are more family-like and perform much better than those that aren't led by them. In order to get employees to get to this level, Reeves states that the way that they develop their people is very similar to how excellent companies like IBM, Hewlett-Packard, and McDonald's have invested in their people. He quotes Robert Waterman stating that if you want productivity and the financial reward that goes with it, you must treat workers like your most valuable asset. I know for a fact that Chipotle invests a lot of time and money in training their employees, and they hire only the best. Those that are deemed not fit and don't match up to the high standards are let go with no hesitation. They have no problem hiring someone that can't do what's expected of them. And I know in my post to last week's discussion on performance standards, I talked about just how high their standards are set. When I initially read the job description, it was a little vague. I mean, it told me what I needed to do, what would be expected of me. It was just a minimal amount, but still it set a tone that a lot would be expected of me. So even before my training, I went in knowing that I would need to do a lot to make it. After my orientation, I was definitely aware of how hard I would have to be working. My first day, we learned just a task they would be performing, and so before our dinner break, we mocked what a typical opening shift would be like, and then after the break, we mocked what a closing shift would be like. Then the next day, the bar was raised. The day before, we learned just the what and the how of what our tasks were, but the next day, we learned how well we needed to perform our tasks, and how well it needed to be done. Time limits were set, and no help was provided at all by any of our trainers or managers. It was every man for himself, unless you could find someone on your team to actually help you out, but really there was no one. It was just you. It definitely gave me a quick reality check of what was expected of me from that point on. After those 2 days of being pushed to the max, I know myself and everyone else was definitely prepared for the grand opening and for any other day after that. Now, I know thinking back to it, at the time I thought it was ridiculous for them to expect so much out of someone after only 2 days. But afterwards, I really appreciated it. And now I can say I definitely have a good idea of how high standards need to be set. From the article and my own experience, I know that a key factor in any business is having employees that not only know what they're doing, but also feel that what they're doing is beneficial to other employees as well as their customers. When the time comes for me and I eventually get to own my own operation, I definitely want to kind of stick to how Chipotle does it and make sure that I'm hiring only the best and make sure that everyone that I hire is taught as much as they can so that they can prepare for anything that comes their way. Thank you.